So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me just move my chat box so I can see what you guys are saying. And yeah, we're all set. Great. So the first thing that we're going to go through is the check visa process. So this is probably the most important part of what I'm going to cover today in the webinar. And it's also probably the thing that looks the most complicated, right? But we're going to go through all of these documents individually so that you see exactly what is required of you. And so that way you'll get everything prepared. So the first item that we're going through is the visa application form. So I sent you guys in an email both a blank version of this and a sample version. I'm going to use the sample version to explain what each question is asking from you. So feel free to go through and fill it out along with me, but you'll have both versions with you to fill it out later afterwards as well. So we'll start at the beginning, and before I start, I just want to mention that you should fill it out similarly to how we've done here. So with block capital letters, blue or black ink, and really as clearly as possible, as neat as possible, so that way those at the consulate will be able to read your handwriting and will be able to process your visa properly. So for question number 1, this is your last name, your surname. Question number 2, if your surname is currently different than it was when you were born, you can write your previous surname there. Otherwise, you can leave this question blank. For question 3, you should write your first name and your middle name if it appears in your passport. So if you have a middle name or a middle initial which appears in your passport, your name here should match your passport exactly. So check your passport, see exactly how your name is written there, and that's what you should copy. Number 4 is your date of birth, and this will be written in day, month, year format. So you can see here how that's done. Anything that you submit in the Czech Republic or in Europe in general should always be written in day, month, year format. Number 5 is your place of birth. So that's a city and state if you're from the US, and you should spell the state out as we've done here. And then your country of birth, for most of you, I believe it's USA. If it's something different, then let me know and I can get you the country code. And along with that, in case anybody wants to ask a question and you don't want to announce it to the whole group in the chat box, you can actually select to send me the message privately so that I can answer it privately for you without revealing your identity. So yeah, for most of you, it will be USA for country of birth. Same with 6 and 7, your original nationality and current nationality will likely be USA. For number 8, you should tick the appropriate box, and same with number 9. For number 10, you'll put your father's surname on the first line, his last name on the first line, and then his first name on the second line. And for number 11, you'll put your mother's last name on the first line, her current legal last name, and her first name on the second line. For number 12, you'll tick the appropriate box. For the majority of you, or for probably all of you, this will be an ordinary passport. And for number 13, you'll put your passport number. Now, before you do that, just please check your passport. I've mentioned it, I believe, before, but you should check again that your passport will be valid for at least 6 months past the program end date. So this means through the end of June 2018. Your passport must be valid for this long to travel here, and if it isn't, it means that you need to apply for an expedited passport essentially tomorrow. But if your passport is valid past June 2018, then you're fine. You can write your passport number here. If you do need to renew your passport or your passport is in the process of being renewed, hold off on filling this out because you'll need to put in the passport details for the one you'll actually be traveling with to the Czech Republic. That's the one you'll apply for your visa with. So your passport number 14 is issued by, again, for most of you, it will be USA. For 15, this is the date of issue, again in day, month, year format. And for number 16, this is the expiration date, so again in day, month, year format. Okay, and we'll move to the next page. For number 17, if you currently live in the country where you're from, you can actually leave this question totally blank. So yeah, if the USA is not the country you were originally born in, please let me know and I can instruct you how to answer question 17. We have a question about the photo that's required, so I'll explain that a little bit later as well, but just so that you know, you will have to submit, in addition to this application and all of the other documents, 2 passport-size photos, and these photos need to be 35 millimeters by 45 millimeters. So you can go to CVS and ask if they'll be able to adjust the size for you. Usually they do 2" by 2" in the US. So if you can, try and have it taken as far away as possible, and then you can cut it down a little bit. But don't stress too much if you can't get the photos to fit perfectly 35 millimeters by 45 millimeters, but those are the official passport photo sizes. So if you can get them taken at that size, that's ideal. But I'll explain all of the other documents after we go through this. So if you are currently living and from the U.S., you can leave 17 blank. For number 18, this is your current occupation, which for all of you, it will be student. And number 19 will be your current home university. So this is just a sample university here, but on the first line you should write the name of your university. On the second line you should write the address of your university, and then the line under that should be the phone number of your university. For number 20, you can copy this exactly. This is the name of our university. So that's Charles University with a space. And then in order for it to fit in the boxes, you have to put the words like this. So Charles University with a comma between the Y and the F, and then Faculty of Arts is all one word. And then for number 21, this is the address of our university. So in Czech, it's Náměstí Jana Palacha. In spelled out, this is N-A-M-E-S-T-I space J-A-N-A space P-A-L-A-C-H-A. And then at number 2, the town is Praha 1. Praha means Prague in Czech. The postcode is 11638. The country code or state code is CZE. And the phone number is +420 733 610 173. So you can copy 20 and 21 exactly as it's written in the sample. I have another question which is about the printing of the application, and yeah, this can be a little bit weird, so I'll answer it for everybody. The paper size in Europe is actually different than the standard paper size in the US. So you have 8.5 by 11 in the US is standard printer paper size, but here we have something called A4. So when you print out the application, you need to adjust the margins and the scaling of the printing of the paper at your home computer or wherever you're printing it so that it prints all of the items on the application. And yeah, it should have everything that you see on my screen. It should be printed. Nothing should be cut off, nothing like that. So if you printed this out once already and it didn't print correctly, go back and adjust the margins and adjust the scaling until you can get it to print so that everything that's in the application prints. Because none of the boxes should be cut off, because those are used by the officials at the ministry to approve your visa. Okay, so if you have never stayed in the Czech Republic for longer than 3 months, you can leave number 22 blank. Number 23, for I believe all of you, is what is written here, which is the address of the dorm. If you're living in private accommodation, please first tell me immediately, and also you'll have to write the address of your private accommodation here instead. But if you're staying at the dorm, which I believe the majority of you are, then you can write this address, which is Parlejova 6. It's spelled P-A-R-L-E-R-O-V-A, and then the number is 6 in Praha 6, and the zip code is 16000. The state is CZE. Your postal address will be the same, so you can leave number 24 blank. Number 25 is 104. So this is the case whether you plan to travel before or after the program starts. It should be for 104 days no matter what. Any days beyond the 104 days, which is the period that the program runs, will be covered by a tourist visa, which you get automatically as an American or Canadian citizen, and it means that you can travel for 90 days out of 100 every 180 days visa-free in the Schengen zone. So you can travel for up to 90 days before or after the program starts, but the visa has to be for 104 days. That's really important. For number 26, if you've never had a Czech visa before, you can leave this question blank. For number 27, if you've never had a Schengen zone visa before, you can leave this question blank. That's a visa for another European country in the Schengen border-free area. And then you can go to the next page, page 3. Number 28, your purpose of stay will be study. So you can tick the box called study. And I have a question. Was the renovated apartment option not available? So right now our only housing that's available is at the university dormitory. So that's what the housing application is for. That's the information that's available on our website. We don't currently have any apartment options available. So if you wanted to rent your own apartment, you could do that, although I have to warn you that it will take some time to get the appropriate visa documents together. So it will be cutting it a little close if you start the search now. But for now, the visa documents which were provided for you are for the university dormitories. So for number 29, your date of arrival will be September 4th, 2017, and again in day, month, year format. And number 30 will be the program end date, which is December 16th, 2017. So you can copy these exactly. For number 31, your place of entry in Czech Republic will most likely be Prague or Praha. For number 32, your means of transport will most likely be plane. For number 33, the inviting person will be our program director, and so you can copy everything here exactly. So her name is Jitka Stepničková. It's Jitka space Stepničkova. And then the rest of the information is actually pretty much the same as what you filled in on the previous page. So all of that can be copied exactly. Number 34, the manner of funding your stay will be yourself, so you have to tick that box. Even if you're getting scholarships or grants or something else, the manner of funding your stay has to be yourself for the purposes of the visa. For number 35, you'll most likely tick cash and credit cards. The first two options, we don't recommend that you bring traveler's checks just because they're not really widely accepted anymore. So that can be a bit of a hassle, so we recommend just cash and credit cards. And then at the bottom of 35, you'll also tick travel and or health insurance, but you should not fill out the valid until date because you'll have to wait until you have your Czech health insurance contract in order to fill that out. Once you have your Czech health insurance contract, you'll fill out the valid until date based on when that contract expires. And we'll go through the Czech health insurance in just a little bit. For the next page, unless you have a spouse or children, you can actually leave the entire page blank. And then on the last page, number 38 is your permanent address. So this is probably the address that will be on your driver's license, for example. And before you start filling it out, just count out the boxes to see if it will fit. If it doesn't fit, which often it doesn't, you can squish the words together without spaces, or you can fill in next to 39 in this blank space here underneath some extra bits. And so you need to have your street address, city, state spelled out, and USA if your permanent address is in the US. For number 39, you'll write your telephone number, which should have the country code as well. So that's +1 for the US, and then area code and phone number. And for number 40, this will be your email address. And this should be an email address that you actually check regularly, because if there's a problem with your application of some kind, then they'll contact you by email first. So make sure that this email address is one that you actually look at regularly. And then at the bottom of the page, you'll put your the place and date of signature, and then in the top right box, your signature. So this is actually the entire visa application form. If you filled it out along with me or you're almost done with it, you can call one document complete, so that's exciting. The next document that I'll talk about is this one, which you either have already received from me or will soon receive from me in the mail via FedEx. And this is your proof of study, so your acceptance letter officially from the university. This will look pretty much the same. It will just have your details up here at the top, and then in the bottom right corner, it will have a round blue stamp. So you don't need to do anything with this document, you just need to submit it, but this is one of the documents that's required. The next document goes along with another document, but I'll explain this one first. It's one of the documents that confirms sufficient financial resources. So for this part of the requirement, you need to have a copy of the front and back of a credit or debit card, which is in your name. And you have to have this photocopy notarized. So in the US, notarizing a photocopy is a bit weird for notaries. They're not used to having to notarize photocopies. So if a notary gives you a hard time about notarizing a photocopy, then what you can do is write something on the photocopy like, I certify that this is an original copy of my credit or debit card, and then sign that statement in front of the notary, and then they'll notarize your signature on that statement, which will be on the photocopy of the credit or debit card. I know that it seems a bit strange, but notarizing a photocopy in the US is a bit of a weird thing, so this is the way most of our students end up getting their photocopy notarized. The next thing that you need is this, which is a bank account statement. So this bank account must be a checking account, which is in your name and tied to the debit or credit card that you copy. And it needs to have a balance of at least $3,000 US. So I know that it's possible that many of you or some of you won't have a checking account with a balance of $3,000. If you do not have such a checking account, I encourage you to somehow find somebody, like a parent, for example, who might be able to transfer some funds into your bank account in order for you to have a bank account statement with the requisite funds. What happens to that money after you print off the bank account statement is entirely up to you, but this is the absolute easiest way to fulfill this requirement. So again, it needs to be a checking account, it needs to be in your name, it needs to be attached to the debit or credit card that you photocopied, and it needs to have a minimum balance of $3,000. If it can have a bit more than $3,000, that would be ideal because this is based on current exchange rates. So in case the exchange rates fluctuate, you'll be covered in that situation. And somebody asked where you can get documents notarized. Most often your bank will have a notary actually, so call your bank to see if they can do that for you. Otherwise, sometimes a town hall will have a notary, so I would check those two places first. Okay, so the next document that you'll need is one that I've also sent to you if you're living in the dorm, and this is your proof of accommodation. So this document has some post-it flags attached to it where I've explained to you where you need to fill out certain details like your address and your passport number and your signature. And when I sent this to you, you got 2 copies of it which are in Czech and 1 copy which is in English. So for your visa application, you must submit the Czech copy, one of them, and then you should keep one of the Czech copies for yourself and the English copy for yourself. The English copy is just so that you know what you've signed, and the second Czech copy is for you to have an official document which proves that you have accommodation in Prague. So the ministry needs one of the Czech copies, you should keep the other one with you. The criminal history background affidavit is the next document. This is linked to on the consulate websites. It's a Word document that you can just download from all of the consulate websites, and you can find also the link to it in the pre-departure guide. And this is fairly standard. Just fill out the top, your name, your last name. You can skip maiden name if you don't have one, your date of birth and day, month, year format. Your place of birth should have the city and the state if you're from the U.S. And so all of the information should match what you have in your visa application form. But before you sign this document, you actually need to have this notarized too. So don't sign this document until you're in front of the notary. And when you have to, when you go to bring your copy of your credit or debit card with you to get it notarized, then you can get this notarized at the same time. So we have a question about the $3,000 minimum balance. And this comes up every single semester. It always is sometimes an issue for some students to have this minimum balance in their account. If it's very complicated and somewhat uncertain if you submit a parent bank account statement and a signed statement that they will support you. Financial aid and scholarship documents do not count. They mean essentially nothing to the Czech government and won't fulfill this requirement. The only other option that you have is to submit your parents' bank account statement with the minimum balance and a notarized sworn affidavit from them saying that they will be supporting you financially for the duration of your program in Prague. With that being said, that is not a guarantee. It's just something that consulates have accepted in the past. The only guaranteed document that they will accept is your bank account statement with your name and a minimum $3,000 balance. So if your parent has that amount of funds in their account and they can transfer it to you for the amount of time it would take you to print out a bank account statement, and an online statement is fine, that is definitely the most ideal situation. We have no real way to know if and when the consulates will stop accepting this signed affidavit from parents, but the requirement is officially that you should have that minimum fund in your account with your name on it. So I hope that's clear, but if anybody has any questions about that and wants to talk to me about it more, I'm more than happy to answer those questions by email as well to discuss your personal situation. That's fine. Okay, so back to this, the criminal history background affidavit. Remember that this needs to be notarized, so don't sign it until you're in front of the notary. The last document that we need to go over is for your Czech health insurance. So some of you have health insurance at home that will cover you when you're abroad. Some of you may be provided with student travel insurance from your home university. But no matter what, you will still have to purchase this Czech health insurance. It costs about $84. And this is a requirement of the Czech government that you have insurance with a company that's recognized here. So I will demonstrate with this company. There is a really long list of companies that offer insurance that is accepted by the Czech government. We demonstrate with this one because it's one that our students have had good experiences with. I can recommend doctors in Prague which accept this health insurance that speak English, which is harder to find with some of the other companies. And also the purchasing process is super simple. So in general, our students tend to purchase insurance from Maxima. But of course, if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to shop around based on the list that's in the pre-departure guide to see what else is available. But I'll demonstrate this now. So if you go to maximapoishtovna.cz, and if it's not in English, you can just click English in the top right corner. And once you're on their main page, you'll click this, Foreigners Insurance Online. On this page, you'll click Insure Online. And then here you have two options. The first is the more complex, comprehensive option, and it's the one that most of our students get. The difference between this and the other emergency medical care is about $4 or $5. And this one will cover you for more. So you'll be covered outside of the Czech Republic, for example, in the Schengen zone, and you'll get some other things. So in general, our students purchase this, but you're more than welcome to purchase the emergency medical care as well. You just need some sort of contract that's recognized by the government. So once you click that, as long as you're younger than 26, definitely tick this box because you'll get a better price, and continue. So here you'll pick 4, and this word here means months in Czech. So you'll pick 4, which will cover the entire length of your program. And then your policy start date should be September 4th, which is the program start date. And it will auto-populate the expiration date. So once you have this, you'll see that you'll have an expiration date. So you can put this date back into your application form. That's the one little bit that we skipped. So once you have this, click continue. And then here you'll type in your surname. So we'll go with our sample student, and your first name. And again, if your middle name appears in your passport, it should also appear here, everywhere. And then we'll do our date of birth, which this time will be July 31st. And then here you'll put your address. So this can be your permanent address in the US. So for the city, we'll put Albany, your zip code, your street address. Your telephone number should be your own phone number. So phone number, we'll put your email address. And you can skip dealer ID. So once you've filled all of that out, click continue. And then you'll be asked for your nationality, which for most of you, again, will be USA, and your passport number. So once you have all of that, you can click continue. And on this next page, just check over all of your details to make sure that they're correct. And then click I confirm in order to go through to the payment. So once you go through to pay the premium, before you pay this, please, please, please call your bank or your credit card company to alert them to the fact that you will be making an international transaction. So if you make this without calling your bank, it's possible that your bank will actually block the charge and think that it's a fraudulent charge, because I guess it's not very often that you purchase health insurance in the Czech Republic. So please call your bank before you make this payment in order for your card not to be blocked for a fraudulent charge. Once you submit payment, you'll be brought to a screen where you can download your health insurance contract. You'll also be sent an email with the health insurance contract as well as all of the terms and conditions from the company about the insurance. So the first thing you should do when you get to that next page is download the contract and then save it to your computer, print out 2 copies, which you'll need to submit for your visa. And also I recommend that you email a copy to me. So you can forward me the email that you get from Maxima once you submit payment, or you can just email me the document that you download, but I'll keep it on file in case of emergency so that if you get sick while you're in Prague or you have an accident, I have your insurance contract on file and you don't need to worry about going to find it if you need to go to the doctor. So I recommend that. Of course, it's not required. It's entirely up to you, but that's what we officially recommend that you do. For those of you from George Washington University, and I think I see a couple of you in here, you already have this, so don't buy it again. Okay, so those are actually all of the required documents for your visa application, and I'll go back to this page so you can see the list again. In your pre-departure guide that I emailed you, you have a checklist of all of the requirements, but I'll go through them now quickly so you can see what you need to submit. So you can see for all of these documents that you need to submit a copy of each. So you should submit the original of every document that you submit plus a photocopy. You should also make a photocopy of every single document that you submit to keep for yourself. Anytime that you submit really important paperwork like this, you should always keep a copy of it for yourself. The only exception to this is your passport, because you need to submit your original passport. You also need to submit 2 copies of the data page, not just one like everything else, but 2 copies of the data page. And you should definitely keep 1 copy of the data page for yourself, because you'll be putting your passport either in the mail or in the hands of the embassy or consulate. You should 100% have a copy of the data page for yourself. And as I mentioned before, you should have 2 recent passport photos that are 35mm by 45mm, or as close as you could possibly get them. In terms of submitting your application, in the pre-departure guide, and I'll go to that now just so you can see where it can be found. So we'll look here on page 5, you can see this chart which lists all of the states and which is their corresponding embassy or consulate. So go here, find which state your permanent address is. So this is your address where your home is, not necessarily where your school is, and find the corresponding consulate or embassy. You really do have to apply at the appropriate consulate or embassy. The other ones will not really accept applications from applicants living in other states. It's separated like this because it can be really overwhelming, obviously, for the embassies and the consulates getting hundreds of applications. So this is so not one embassy or consulate is too overloaded. So submit it at the appropriate one. Now, if you can, drop off your application in person. So for example, if you live in Virginia and you can get to Washington, D.C. to submit your application, submitting it in person is the best scenario because it means that you can confirm personally when your application was submitted. You know that they have your passport. It also means not putting your passport through the mail an extra time or one time more than you have to. However, if you cannot submit your application in person, you can absolutely mail it. And I would say that actually the majority of our students end up mailing their applications just because they don't live close enough to their designated embassy. So in order to mail it, you should mail it in a USPS, a U.S. Postal Service express mail envelope with tracking, with insurance, with every possible security you could possibly attach to it. Because like I said, your passport will be going in the mail, so you want to have as low a risk factor as possible with that. So this is actually USPS Express Mail is currently the only shipping carrier that the consulates accept. And if you can't go to pick up your passport with the visa in it once it's been approved, you need to include another prepaid self-addressed USPS tracked insured envelope for the consulate to use to send your passport back to you once they've inserted the visa. In terms of processing time, the visa application process can take up to 60 days. So that means that you should submit it preferably by the middle of June. Absolutely, however, no later than the end of June. If you submit your application after the end of June, we cannot guarantee that you will get your visa in time or that they will send you back your passport in time. They really do sometimes take the full 60 days to process visas. And like I said, all of the consulates are really very busy right now, and so I imagine that this year in particular, they will definitely take the full 60 days. So it's imperative that you submit your application no later than the end of June. That's really important. If you want me to look over your application before you submit it to make sure that everything is correct, please feel free to email me a scanned copy of everything, and I'm happy to go through it and make sure that I don't see any really obvious mistakes before you submit it. Submitting a correct visa application is really, really important, because if you submit some document that is incorrect, the time that it takes to get you to replace that document stops the clock on the 60 days, which means that it could take longer if something is incorrect in your application. So it's important that you submit everything on time and correctly no later than the end of June. But like I said, I'm more than happy to read through your application for you once you submit, or before you submit. Okay, does anybody have any visa questions? I don't see any popping up in my chat box, so I'll continue, but if you come up with any questions or come up with one after the webinar, please email me. I'm more than happy to help via email. Okay, So we'll continue past all of the visa information. The next thing that I want to cover is about the program. So this is our calendar. You can also find this calendar in the pre-departure guide and on the ECES website, and this just goes over briefly what to expect during their semester in Prague. So the official arrival day is September 4th, and then you'll have 2 days of orientation. I'll explain those in more depth later. After the first 3 days, you'll start your Czech language and culture course, which is a mandatory course. It's worth 3 credits, and I'll explain your options for that as well. On the second and third Wednesday of the program, you'll have your orientation day trips, which are also a mandatory part of the program. These are trips to places outside of Prague, somewhere in the Czech Republic, to first give you a break from your Czech language and culture course, but also to introduce you to the history and culture of the Czech Republic. So I'll explain that as well. Then the beginning of the semester is on Monday, September 25th. And actually that week you have a long weekend because we have a national holiday on Thursday, September 28th. So it means that there's no class that day, but you'll meet Monday through Wednesday, the first week for classes. And then you'll have your add drop period ending on Thursday, October 5th. So this is after 2 full weeks of classes. You'll have to rearrange your schedules, adjust some courses, and anything that's on your schedule beginning midnight Friday, October 6th will be on your final transcript. So you have the first 2 weeks of the program and of the semester to adjust whatever you need to adjust in terms of classes, and then everything needs to be finalized by the end of the day on the 5th. Because we have a national holiday, we need to make up for the classes that were missed on those days, so we will have Friday classes on November 10th. But otherwise, there's only class Monday through Thursday, with the exception of the Czech language course that meets Monday through Friday. So once the regular semester begins on September 25th, you have classes mostly only Monday through Thursday. The exception to that is the first 3 Fridays of the semester when you have Friday classes for your Czech language and culture class, and this makeup day. On the week of December 4th through 8th, we'll have what we call our reflection week, where you'll be asked to attend at least 1 workshop in addition to your regular classes. So classes will continue to meet that week, but some reflection workshops will be scheduled for that Friday. But it's the last weekend of the semester, so most often students stay in Prague that weekend, and we recommend that you do. Then the last week we'll have a farewell party, and the semester officially is over on the 15th, and the departure day is the 16th. So if you want to stay longer, you're certainly welcome to do that, but the program officially ends at the end of that week. In terms of academics, you can register for up to 7 courses, which is 21 credits, and that includes that mandatory intensive Czech language course. During the initial registration period, which begins on July 2nd, you can register for up to 5 courses, including the Czech language course, so that means 4 electives plus Czech language. And then once you arrive in Prague on September 4th, you can begin signing in for 2 additional classes. Most of our students take only 2 or 3 elective classes. Some take 4. Very rarely do we have students who take 5 or 6 elective classes during the semester. So we have this policy to ensure that everybody can get into enough classes initially, so not everybody registers for 7 classes and then everything has really long wait lists. So keep that in mind, that you can register for only 5 initially, which includes the Czech language course. And then if you want to register for more, you can do so after you arrive in Prague. We have block scheduling, which means that our classes meet in regular intervals, and this follows the same schedule as the Faculty of Arts. So we try and make it so that as few classes as possible conflict. However, of course, that's not possible to ensure that no classes conflict. So once the schedule is released, it'll be really important that you just check to be sure which courses conflict and then build a schedule around that. And then I'll just mention 2 quick notes about actually the style of learning in the Czech Republic, the academic culture. The first note that I have is that these courses have a much more independent style of learning. This means that you may have only 1 or 2 assignments throughout the entire semester, but these 1 or 2 assignments will constitute the majority of the grade for that course. So this means that you may have just a midterm test and a final paper, or a midterm paper and a final test, something like this. So it's really important that you stay on top of your work in order to succeed in these assignments, because if you do poorly on one, sometimes it's really hard to recover. The other thing that goes along with this is just because you don't have a lot of assignments throughout the entire semester, it doesn't mean that there aren't expectations that you're actually studying. So you'll look at the syllabi, and maybe some of you have already looked at the syllabi for our classes and noticed that there's a lot of reading that's on there. And I'm not sure if you're used to doing the required reading at home, if your professors expect it of you. Every university is a little bit different, but here the professors definitely expect that you do the required reading for the course. So even if a course has only 1 or 2 assignments for the entire semester, I can guarantee you that there's a lot more work that you're expected to do in order to prepare for the class. So I'm saying this only because when you are looking at the syllabi for your classes, it's really important that you don't look at the syllabi and find the ones that have the least amount of assignments. It's more important that you look at the courses to find out which ones you need to take, which ones you want to take and you're interested in taking, regardless of the number of assignments. Because some of the ones that look like they'll be easy because they only have 1 or 2 assignments actually end up being the most difficult. And I really hate at the end of the semester when I hear that students are disappointed in the classes they took because this is how that they arrange their schedules. So please be really diligent in reading the entire syllabus for every course you're considering registering for, so that you know exactly what will be expected of you before you register. And with that, also, our professors expect a lot of personal responsibility. So they are really approachable people. They love teaching foreigners. They do this because they love teaching foreigners, but they are largely Czech people. And this means that they grew up in the Czech educational system. The majority of them still teach in the Czech educational system. And so in the Czech system, it's not very common for teachers to give a lot of instruction. They'll say, they'll assign you a paper and say, write a 10-page paper about the Third Reich, and then that's it. That's all you'll get. But if you need more clarification or you need help about an assignment or about a point that was made in class, they expect that you go to them to ask. They're not going to chase you down to make sure that you understand everything. They're going to expect that if you don't understand something, that you approach them. So it's also really important when you're going through the syllabi to just be aware of that in the back of your mind, that you will be responsible for making sure that you're successful in these classes. Of course, everybody here is here to help you do that, but only if you approach us and the professors. Okay. So course registration will begin at midnight on Sunday, July 2nd. So that's the midnight between July 1st and July 2nd. So this means if you're on the East Coast of the U.S., it's 6 p.m. on July 1st. Spaces in our courses are given on a first-come, first-served basis. And so because of this, we recommend that you get some extra courses approved in advance just in case you can't get into all of your first choice classes. We do have an automatic waitlist system, which means that if you go to sign in for a course which is already full, when you sign in for it, you'll be automatically placed on a waitlist, and then if enough students drop the course, you'll be automatically moved into the class list. But we can't guarantee that every student get into exact courses because there is limited space in all of them based on class size and professor availability. So it's really important that you have your Plan A course list approved and also your Plan B course list approved just in case you need to take one of your Plan B courses. The course list will be available in June, so probably the beginning to middle of June. The academic board will be meeting next week to go over all of the proposed courses that our professors have submitted, and also the course evaluations from the spring semester. So once they've gone through all of these proposals, they will create the final course list, which will be available once we've made the schedule with our professors. So you'll have that available to you in June, but for now, if you want to use the course list of the past semester, it will be a good indicator of what may be available. So you can use those syllabi to start getting things approved, but I'll send out an email to everybody once the final course list is available in June. Any questions about courses, course registration? Okay, so in terms of orientation, as I mentioned, your arrival day is Monday, September 4th, and if you arrive on that day, you will be provided with transportation to the dormitory. In order to take advantage of this, you just need to send me your travel details by August 13th. There's an online Google form which is linked to in the pre-departure guide, so please use that form to send me your arrival details. If you don't send me your arrival details before August 13th, then I can't guarantee that we'll be able to provide transportation for you because it needs to be booked in advance. So just keep that in mind. In terms of checking into the dorm, once the transportation drops you at the dorm, a staff member will be waiting for you with your housing package. You'll need your passport to check in at the front desk, and the only thing that you'll need to turn over at that point is a 500 Czech crown deposit, which covers damage to the ECES common spaces, so the community kitchen, laundry room, study room, etc. 500 crowns is about $20 US, just to give you an indication. If you don't plan to exchange dollars into Czech crowns in advance, that's fine. Our staff at the airport can point you in the direction of good ATMs to use at the airport. I recommend waiting until after you get through baggage claim to ask our staff members which ones you should use, because the ones that are before baggage claim will charge you a ridiculous commission. So once you get through baggage claim and through customs, there's ATMs which are affiliated with actual banks, and those are the ones that won't charge you a big commission to withdraw money at the airport. Okay, so the arrival day, you can check in anytime that day, although I recommend, if you can, trying to get into Prague by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the latest. Our orientation activities start pretty early on Tuesday morning, and so most students find that they're much happier if they arrive in the afternoon on Monday, so you have a chance to settle in, relax, meet your peers, meet your roommates, all of that good stuff. For those who do arrive early enough, we typically hold a meet and greet in the evening where you can come to a local pub, buy some food, and meet your peers and also my colleagues, the other staff members. Tuesday is when your orientation activities really begin. So at this time, you'll have your housing orientation with our housing coordinator. You'll have the chance to get your Charles University ID card, and you'll have a welcome meeting from the university. So this has all of the important information that you'll need for the whole semester. On Wednesday, you'll be able to buy a transportation pass. So this isn't a requirement, but we recommend that you do it. Almost every single ECES student buys a transportation pass. They're not super expensive. It's about 750 Czech crowns, I believe, for students, which is about $35 US, so it's not too pricey, and it gives you unlimited access for 3 months to all of Prague's metros, buses, and trams. So it's a really good deal, and we recommend that you do it. And during orientation, we provide you with a student assistant who will help you translate at the transportation office, because not all of the people that work there speak English. So it's a good chance to buy it when you have somebody to help you. Later on Wednesday, we hold a Prague scavenger hunt where you'll be paired in small groups with a local student and other ECES students, and you'll have the chance to explore Prague on your own, get a chance to use your transportation pass, learn how to use the transit system, and also find some important landmarks, but also some smaller local landmarks, so that way you can learn the city. This ends at a river cruise, so you'll have a chance to relax then on the river, enjoy some dinner provided by the program, and enjoy the views of the city in the evening. It's a really nice way to end the orientation period. And then you can see my little calendar here, which explains how orientation will look, just to help you visualize it. So you can see the arrival is on Monday, then 2 days of orientation, and then on Thursday, your Czech language and culture course begins. So this is a mandatory course, as I mentioned. It's worth 3 credits, and it meets for 10 days for about half a day each day. And you have two options for this class. The first is a graded option where you'll receive a letter grade A through F, and the second is a pass-fail option where you'll receive only a pass or a fail. The courses cover the same exact content. They're taught in essentially the same way, but it's just the way that you're graded. So essentially one you'll receive a letter and one you'll receive a pass-fail, but otherwise they're the same. If you want to take the full-length semester check course, you have to take the graded option, but otherwise you can take whichever one you want. The only thing that I'll mention is that if your home university requires that you receive a C or better, for example, in a class in order to get credit for it, you must take the graded version. Because for the pass-fail version, you will not be provided with a letter grade, which means that we won't be able to tell your university that you got a certain letter grade for the course. So if you need to prove that you've gotten a C or better, you should take the graded section. Otherwise, pick whichever one you want. So the Czech language course meets for the first Thursday and Friday, either in the afternoon or the morning session. And then for the next 2 weeks, it meets Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. And then the day trips are scheduled for the Wednesdays, just to break up the course a little bit and give you a chance to get out of the city and learn some of the Czech history and culture, which is really interesting and makes up a really fundamental part of modern Czech culture. So you'll be able to sign in for your desired day trip. Usually we have 3 options per day, so you'll be able to pick which one you want to attend, and I'll explain more about that when it's available on our website. So you'll sign in for the day trips much like you'll sign in for the courses, but I'll explain that via email once it's all available for you. In addition to all these day trips in the beginning, which are included, we have other optional trips and activities which are not included in your fee. But we offer them because this gives you the opportunity to explore Czech culture a bit with your peers and with the program. And so these are just an example of some of the trips and activities that we tend to offer. All of the ones that will be available for the fall will be posted on the ECES website this summer, and then you'll be able to register for them in advance, along with the orientation mandatory trips. So this way you'll be able to know which weekends you're booked, which ones you have free in advance in case you want to plan any independent travel around your course schedule. So like I said, this is just a list of sample trips and activities, but as soon as the final list of trips and activities available on the website, I'll send you an email. One that I'll just highlight really quickly is that we offer always a Thanksgiving dinner. And so I know that for a lot of American students, by the end of November, you might be feeling a little homesick, and then you have this big holiday that you're missing at home. So we always have an ECES family Thanksgiving dinner in Prague in order to help you celebrate the holiday. And so in case you're worried about what you'll do for Thanksgiving over the fall semester, keep in mind that we will have one for you available in case you're in Prague that day. Okay, so I'll just talk briefly about housing. I think that I received your housing applications already, but if you haven't sent me a housing application, please do so as soon as possible. The housing is in suite style, so the suites have either double or single rooms. The price for both is the same, so pick which one you want. As long as there's enough singles available for everybody who's requested one, then you'll get one. If there isn't, then we'll hold a sign-up in order to give them out on a first-come, first-served basis. So the suites have typically 3 or 4 rooms in each, and you share a bathroom and a kitchen with your suite mates. The thing about the housing assignments is actually that the dorm assigns the housing. So I give them the preferences, and I would say 99% of the time they're able to honor our students' preferences, but I can't tell you which actual room you will be in until you arrive in Prague, because I won't have that information in advance. So once you arrive to Prague, you'll receive your room assignments at the dorm. You have a housing coordinator that will live on site with you, so you'll see her typically at breakfast, but she also has an apartment in the dorm in case you need anything or have an emergency. She's available to help you. You have access to a full kitchen that has some cooking supplies. You also have access to a laundry room exclusively for ECES students and a study room exclusively for ECES students. And breakfast at the dorm is provided Monday through Friday. The only exception to this is on national holidays. So if it's a national holiday, breakfast isn't provided, but otherwise it's every day, Monday through Friday, from 7:30 to 9:30, and the room closes by 10. The address of the dorm is here, just so that you know. This is the same address that we wrote on your visa application form. One thing I'll note, which is relatively new to the dorm, is that we actually have Wi-Fi now, which is great. It's university Wi-Fi, so it's the EDU Roam network. So if you've heard from students in the past who have said that the dorm doesn't have Wi-Fi, it does now, so you're benefiting from these improvements. Just keep in mind that for the first week of the program, for the first 4 or so days, you won't have access to the Wi-Fi because it's tied to your student account, which only begins once you get your student ID card. So once you have your student ID card, it takes a little while to get you into the system. But as soon as we have your login details for the Wi-Fi, we'll give them to you during your Czech class, either on Thursday or Friday. So for the time between when you arrive and when you get your login details for the Wi-Fi network, you will have access to internet in the dorm via Ethernet. So if your computer doesn't have an Ethernet port and you want desperately to be able to have internet access through your computer at the dorm during those first 3 or 4 days, you may need to get an adapter or decide to share an adapter with some other students. Otherwise, what we can do is actually recommend some cafes and restaurants very close to the dorm that have free Wi-Fi. So for those first couple of days, typically you won't be spending very much time in the dorm anyway. You'll be very busy. And then you'll be able to use internet cafes around Prague, cafes which have internet, not internet cafes specifically. Most cafes actually in Prague have internet, so you'll have access to Wi-Fi there until you get your username and password. I have a question about the suites, if they're divided by male and female or if they're co-ed. So the suites are always either male or female unless it's requested otherwise. So if you have a friend that you want to share a suite with, then you can request that. Otherwise, yeah, typically they put all guys in one room and all girls in another suite. All guys in one suite and all girls in another suite. That's what I mean. Okay. So in terms of some cultural considerations, I'm sharing these now just to maybe inspire you to start doing some research. This will help you a lot if you do some research in advance before you come to Prague so that you understand Czech culture a little bit better. The first is Czech openness to strangers. This is something that our students often find a bit frustrating when they first get here. You'll find when you get here that it might be a little bit more challenging than you initially anticipated to, for example, make Czech friends at the university. This is not because Czechs don't want to be friends with you or that they're unapproachable, but rather it's because Czechs aren't used to becoming friends with people after the first time they meet them. So if you are interested in making local friends, we definitely encourage you to do that, and we provide you with a couple of different ways to meet Czech friends, but we will not be able to facilitate the friendship process because the Czech friendship process is actually a much more involved process than something that could ever be facilitated. It will be your responsibility to pursue those friendships, and it means that you'll have to hang out with that person a couple of times in order for them to accept you as a friend. But the nice thing about this is that once you have a Czech friend, you have that Czech friend for life. They will do absolutely anything for you. I always like to say that Czechs don't really have acquaintances. They have people that they know of and people they're friends with, and that's it. The whole quasi-friend acquaintance thing that you may have at home really doesn't exist in the Czech Republic. Another thing that's really important is the restaurant etiquette, and typically this is something that you'll notice immediately upon arriving to Prague. The Czech Republic is not a customer service oriented country, which means that when you go to a restaurant, the servers there will bring you your food and then they'll bring you your bill when you're done. They won't come over a million times to ask how you're doing. They won't give you free water. This is just part of the culture. So it's not that they're being rude to you, it's just that this is how they are expected to act as servers. But with that means that you actually don't have to tip them as much either. The typical tip in Czech Republic is between 5 or 10% of the total bill, or you can just even round up a little bit. So it's nice because it makes things a lot less expensive, and Prague is already a lot less expensive than most American cities. So this is actually, in the end, quite a nice thing. The public transportation etiquette just largely deals with this unfortunate, ugly American stereotype that I'm sure that you've been told about from other places. So you may notice when you first get to Prague, if you hop on a tram with a whole bunch of other friends from the program, that your volume is louder, for example, than a lot of the other people on the tram. So we just encourage you to be really aware of your surroundings, to watch what other people are doing and try to conform to what those people are doing. This is the best way to immerse yourself into the culture, just to learn from what the locals are doing and try to appreciate that and really live by that culture in these situations. And the last thing I'll mention is classroom etiquette. I already mentioned the academic culture, but in terms of classroom etiquette, typically professors, well, in Czech Republic in general, professors are given a lot of respect. They hold a very high place in society here. And so professors will expect that you dress relatively well for class. They won't really love if you show up in pajamas or sweatpants, for example. Also, typically they don't really like if you're eating in class, especially full meals. Water and coffee, that sort of thing is fine, but eating in class really isn't appropriate. Using electronics in class really isn't super appreciated, especially when you're using electronics for things other than taking notes, like Facebook or whatever else. So that's definitely something you don't want to do here, to risk offending the teachers. And also, probably the most interesting and important one is if you're ever running a bit late to class and you come in 5 minutes late, you should always apologize when you walk into the classroom. You might be used to just kind of sneaking into the back and sitting down quietly, but here you're expected to actually apologize for being rude and coming late. So these are just some classroom etiquette tips which are a bit different and interesting than you might be used to. But like I said, I encourage you to do some research into Czech culture before you come. There's a lot of resources for this in the pre-departure guide, and also I'll be sending resources via email, and also I'll be posting a lot of them in the Facebook group. So I encourage you to check those out in advance, so that way you're more informed and more prepared when you get here. Some of the last things that I'll mention is just some practical considerations. So the first is, like I mentioned before, call your credit card company and your bank and all of the cards that you could possibly be using to let them know that you'll be traveling. If you'll be traveling outside of the Czech Republic sometime during the semester, also let them know which other countries you intend to go to. If you don't yet know which other countries you intend to go to, tell them every country in Europe. I don't really care. The worst thing that could happen is that they think your card is being used fraudulently and they turn it off, because it happens every single semester, unfortunately, and it's such a pain to replace your card when you're abroad. So you really don't want to have to deal with that. The best scenario is to just make sure everybody's informed you're traveling ahead of time. The other thing that I'll mention is to be aware of the European style adapters. You should definitely buy these in advance of your arrival. Do not wait until you get to Prague to buy European style adapters. It's pretty difficult here to find US to Europe adapters because Czech people don't need them. They need Europe to US adapters. So buy some ahead of time. You can get them at Walmart, Target, Best Buy, Amazon, whatever. You can get them pretty much everywhere. They're really small. They're pretty inexpensive, so I recommend getting a couple of them. For the most part, you won't need voltage converters. Most modern electronics convert voltage automatically, so these are things like laptops, phones, cameras. These things should convert your voltage automatically. Things which don't convert voltage automatically are heat-producing appliances like hair straighteners, hair dryers, things of that nature. And I actually encourage you to buy these heat-producing appliances once you get to Prague. Even if you use a voltage converter, there's still a possibility that these things could overheat. And it actually happened to me when I was studying abroad. I visited the UK for a weekend, and I plugged my straightener into a voltage converter into a UK socket, and I let it heat up, and then I was going to just straighten my hair before I went out for dinner, and my hair melted because the straightener got so hot. which I didn't even know it was possible for hair to melt, but it is. And I'm actually really lucky because it could have been a fire hazard. So I can point you, once you get to Prague, in the direction of stores that sell these things for relatively inexpensive prices, and it's much safer to do it this way. Also, if you plan to travel to the UK at all during your semester, you should also get 1 or 2 UK adapters because they have a different plug shape than Europe does. The next tip that I have is that you may want to start learning Czech. So it seems like a really lofty goal, but even just practicing the pronunciation and some basic phrases will go a really long way in first endearing you to the Czech people, endearing you to all of your Czech teachers, but also preparing you for your Czech course. So there's an app called Memrise that I actually use, and I recommend downloading Memrise. It has English to Czech lessons available now, and it works similarly to Duolingo, if you're familiar with Duolingo, but currently Duolingo doesn't have English to Czech. Apparently they'll be releasing a beta version of English to Czech in July, so keep an eye peeled for that. But for now, I recommend that you download Memrise and also check to see if your home university has any resources available to you. Some universities provide students with free access to things like Rosetta Stone, so you may have access to it through your library, for example. And then the last item that I have to recommend is an official Charles University recommendation, which is to get an ECES card. The majority of Czech students get one of these. It's an international student identity card, and this is something that you buy online in advance. You cannot buy this in Prague. You must buy it from home first, and it provides you with access to discounts all over Europe. So I think it's around $25 or $30, and it takes about 3 weeks to send to you. So if you want to do this, I recommend doing it now, just so that you have it. And you can actually go on their website and check to see which discounts they have available. So that way you can decide if it's worth it for you to buy it. But it's just something good to know about. You will have a Charles University ID, which will give you access to some discounts in Czech Republic, but it won't give you access to discounts everywhere. Some discounts are only available for ECES card holders. So just keep that in mind. So I have some questions. The first is if adapters all over Europe are the same. Central and Western Europe adapters the same? Yes. So European adapters on the continent are all the same. They're like 2 round pins that you have. Yeah. So they're all the same. The only one that's different is the UK. And another question, how do you recommend that you carry your passport when you visit other countries or in the dorm? So the thing with carrying your passport in Prague and in other countries is that it's actually illegal for you not to have it on you. If a police officer decides to stop you and ask you for your ID, the only ID that will be acceptable is your passport, and if you don't have it with you, they can fine you 3,000 Czech crowns on the spot, which is about $120. So we can't advise you not to carry it with you. If you don't have it with you for whatever reason, we recommend that you definitely carry at least a copy of your passport with you. It doesn't count as the official document, but it's always good to have. Even if you are carrying your passport on you, you should always have a copy of it with you. I recommend, it sounds silly, but just be really careful with it. I know a lot of students get those waist belts that go under your clothes, so you can't see it. It's just this like money belt that's really thin and has a zipper. It's a travel hack sort of thing. So you can get one of those, and then it's highly unlikely that it'll be stolen from you. And if you always keep it in there and you always keep that belt on you, then you'll never lose it. So that's a really good way to do it. Otherwise, I recommend definitely never just sticking it in your back pocket or sticking it in a backpack, which could easily be pickpocketed. Just always keep it in a really safe place. But you should know that it is technically illegal for you not to have it on your person when you're in a foreign country. So that's really important. So make a lot of copies of your passport before you leave so that you can carry them on you. Keep one at your housing. Give one to a friend or family member at home so they have it. That's important. So that's actually all that I have for you. Does anybody have any other questions that I can answer at this time? I don't see any coming in. So the most important detail that I just want to reiterate is that about the visa application, remember that you must submit your application absolutely no later than the end of June. That is the most important thing that I want you to take away from this whole webinar. No later than the end of June, you should submit your visa application. And again, if you want me to look over all of your application documents before you submit them, I am more than happy to do that. Just send them to me in an email. I'm going to be away on holiday starting on Friday, but I'll be checking my email periodically. So if I don't respond to you right away, know that I am going to respond to you eventually or upon my return. But I'll be home for the next 2 weeks and not with regular access to email. So just keep that in mind. But I'm more than happy to check your application for you. And I actually recommend that I check your application for you. A second pair of eyes will never hurt anybody. Okay, so I don't see any other questions coming in, but again, if you have any that pop up after this, please feel free to email me or message me on Facebook. If you haven't already, I encourage you to join the Facebook group for the fall 2017 semester so that you can connect with your peers and get all of our sort of fun cultural pre-departure information. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great summer. Good luck with your applications, your visa applications, and I look forward to meeting you all in person in September. So I hope that you all have a good day or night, depending on where you are, and thanks for coming.